Very good morning, children. Hope you all are fine. Today in my geography class, I will be talking about Peninsula Rivers. Children, as I told you before also, in this chapter, question answers, explanation is not required. In this chapter, only maps will be coming. I will be highlighting the various rivers which flow in our country. As you know, in my last video, I have explained to you about the Himalayan rivers. Those Himalayan rivers where the origin is from the Himalayas. Since the origin is from the Himalayas, they are perennial rivers. Ganga, Indus, Brahmaputra. Today, in our new topic, that is the Peninsular Rivers. Peninsular rivers basically means that they are those rivers which are in the peninsular India. They are basically these rivers which are formed by the Western Ghats. These rivers, they flow from north to south close to the western coast. When you find that they flow from north to south towards the western coast. The major peninsular rivers which we will be discussing, which we will be locating in the maps are Narmada, Tapi, Godavari, Mahanadi, Krishna and Kaveri. I repeat, Narmada, Tapi, Godavari, Mahanadi, Krishna and Kaveri. It is very important at this point of time that when we have to locate the rivers, it is very important that we have to start with the origin, that is the mouth of the river, and the ultimate drainage of the rivers. I will be just discussing the major routes from what is the mouth and what is the end of the river, so that it is easier for you all to locate these various rivers. It is very important for you all that all these rivers drain up into the Bay of Bengal. Since they drain up into Bay of Bengal, all these peninsular rivers, they make delta at their mouth. Starting with the first river, that is the Narmada River. Narmada River origin is in the Amarkantak hills of Madhya Pradesh. It is the longest peninsular river, just for your information. Though the MCQs are not coming, but it is important for you all to know. Here we find that when from the Amarkantak, Madhya Pradesh, they formed a rift valley here. And when they form a rift valley here, we find that it is such a beautiful location. It represents a picture location from this Narmada River. And with this we find a unique feature that it makes a steep gorge. Steep gorge, and two things which are there. Number one, it is known as the Marble Rock, and number two, the Dhwaladhar Falls, which are found in these rivers. As you all know, the rivers are basically coming together with the tributaries also. So when we talk about the tributaries of Narmada, we find that the tributaries of Narmada, when they join the Narmada River, they form the right angle. They come at the exactly right direction. But let me tell you, when they come in the right direction, but the length of the Narmada rivers are very short. The second peninsular river is the Tapi River. Tapi River, it starts from the Betul district and again it is from Narmada. So the two important peninsular rivers which come from Narmada, which are in Madhya Pradesh, number one is the Narmada, and just parallel to Narmada we find the Tapi River. Narmada is on the upward side, Tapi is on just parallel to the Narmada. But when we compare the two rivers, Narmada is a longer river and Tapi is a shorter river as compared to the Narmada River. Here, when we talk about the Tapi River, it is that river which is parallel to Narmada and it is short in length. Here, we find that it moves in three states. Now, what are these states? Just for your information, these states are, as I told you, Madhya Pradesh, then it goes to Gujarat, then it reaches the Maharashtra, and finally, with the Western Ghats merging to the Western Ghats, it flows in the Arabian Sea. Here, when the Arabian Sea, when it goes down in these Arabian Sea, we find that these coastal rivers are very short. They are not very long, as I told you, in the Narmada River. And finally, we find that when they are flowing in this direction, we find the way, as I told you, we find the western flowing rivers here, and these rivers are your Sabarmati, Mahi, Punza and Periyar. I repeat, the west flowing rivers here, they are the Sabarmati, Mahi, Bharatpunza as well as the Periyar. The third important peninsular river is the Godavari River. This is which is found in the Western Ghats, and this is found in the Narmada River. See, and it is found basically in the Nasik district. From Gujarat, we move to the Maharashtra region. Nasik is in Maharashtra. When we talk about the Nasik, we find here that it is the longest river. Please remember, Godavari is the longest river, and since it is the longest river, it makes the largest delta of the Peninsula River. The delta, you know, the triangle shape. Here, it finds that 50% of this basin, it lies in Maharashtra. When we talk about the tributaries of Godavari River, we find that the various tributaries are Manjra, Vanganga, Penganga, Purna, Vardha and Paranita. Since all the Ganga tributaries join here, we basically find that this is known as the Dakshin Ganga. And after moving from these areas, it drained basically into flowing from Maharashtra, Nasik, etc. It merges into the larger water body, that is the Bay of Bengal. Moving ahead to the fourth peninsular river, we find the Mahanadi. Mahanadi, it is found in the highlands of Chhattisgarh and from Odisha, meaning from Chhattisgarh it moves to Odisha and finally it merges again like the previous rivers into the Bay of Bengal. Here we find that these areas in which these areas are moving are Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand and Odisha. And finally, all these rivers flow into the Bay of Bengal. The fifth peninsular river is known as the Krishna Basin. Krishna Basin is basically originating from the Western Ghats, which is near Mahabaleshwar. This is an area before merging to the Bay of Bengal. We find that this Mahanadi makes the largest delta on the Krishna River. Here we find that there are small tributaries. Now what are these tributaries? These tributaries are Tungbhadra, Koyna, Ghatprabha, Musi as well as Bhima. I repeat my tributaries here. Tungbhadra, Koyna, Ghatprabha, Musi and Bhima are the important tributaries which are formed by the Krishna Basin. Last and not the least, we'll talk about the Kavari Basin. The Kavari Basin is that basin where the origin is from the Brahmagiri region. When we talk about the origin, we find that they also are originated from the Western Ghats, and it origins from the Western Ghats, and finally after flowing from the Western Ghats, it merges up into the Bay of Bengal. Here we find that the length of this river is not very large. It is only 760 kilometers. But we find here the various tributaries. Now what are the various tributaries? The various tributaries are Amravati, Bhavani, Hemvati and Kabani. Again, it is very important for you all children to learn the tributaries. Again, I am repeating the tributaries of the Kavari Basin, that is Amravati, Bhavani, Hemavati and Kabani. Now this Kaveri region, this Kaveri River, it flows from 3 states. And what are these basic states? They are the Karnataka, Kerala as well as the Tamil Nadu. It is very important for me to discuss that this Kaveri which is there, it forms the second largest waterfall in our India. It is the second largest waterfall in our country. And it is also known as Sivas Mundaram. What do we call it? Sivas Mundaram. Second important thing it is very important that the hydroelectric power. I told you in my previous class also, hydroelectric power means from the flow of the water. The more the water, the more the electricity will be generated. So, in this Kaveri Basin, with 3 basic areas, the river flowing from Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu, we find here the largest hydroelectric fall which is in the Mysore region, that is the Bengaluru as well as the Kolkar areas. This is the end up of your Peninsula Rivers. It is very important for you all to remember the location, the water bodies, etc. We will not be touching the MCQs. We will not be touching the explanation. I will not be going into the explanation of the NCERT. But it is very important for you all to locate these rivers. In geography, in class 9, you will get the out of 6 marks, 3 marks will be allotted for your geography maps. Major maps of the geography section will be coming from this chapter only. So the 3 marks to grab 3 marks, it is very important for you all to have the basic understanding of these peninsular rivers. Hope I am quite clear with my understanding. Thank you very much.